a feeling that you do not like, then you need to examine it and figure out why. It's not easy, definitely not easy. I'll give you an example of how my own thinking, my own subconscious thinking, affected me. It's just a minor thing, but this is how it works. A few years ago, not that many years ago, because I've only been showing dogs since 2006 on a regular basis, but a particular man was slated to judge a particular show, and I was asked if I was going, and I said no, I am not. I would not go under that man. And I really felt quite a antipathy towards him. And yet I'd never been under him before, I'd never spoken to him before. But I really didn't want to show my dog under him. And I began to wonder, why did I feel like this about this man? Anyway, I gave up thinking about that, and I was at another dog show, and this man came walking towards me without me realising straight away who it was, and who I saw walking towards me was my father. And then the penny dropped. There wasn't anything wrong with this man. It was me and my thinking. He reminded me of my father, and that's why he made me feel riled up whenever I saw him. Once I realised that, I entered the show, and I'm glad I did, because I did reasonably well under him. I was placed with both my dogs, and I certainly would go under him again. And I chat with him and all that now. You see, it's important that we know ourselves, because if we don't know ourselves, we don't know how much we contribute to our own misery. Because it's all basically down to the way that we think. The only reason I've changed so much is because I no longer believe the nonsense I used to believe. You know, if we're taught to believe in a certain way, to think in a certain way, it's hardly surprising that we become adults who think and believe in that way. And it's really down to us to change it. But we have to realise that there is a possibility of change, which many of us don't. And I finally realised through the help of the therapist that I saw that I did not have to think what I'd been told to think. Now, the process of unthinking and starting to view the world in a completely different way was very, very frightening to me, extremely frightening. I believed that I was going to get smited by God. You know, that a lightning bolt would come through the air and make me drop dead. I truly believe that. I know this sounds funny, and I'm perhaps talking about it lightheartedly, but it was a very terrifying experience. And I almost stopped seeing the therapist because, you know, I began to think that maybe he was demonic, because he was suggesting that there were other ways to think, and I'd been told categorically that there was only one way to think, and that was their way. And, you know, by doing this I was breaking the commandment about honouring thy father and thy mother, because there should have been a PS, but not if they abuse you. And a lot of people get trapped like that. They, you know, they're really suffering, they're really bloody screwed up, but they cannot let go. And the biggest thing that helped me was I finally gave up hope that I was ever going to be acceptable to my parents, that I was ever going to be loved by them, that they would ever be what I wanted them to be. They weren't going to. Hope can be very destructive. We need hope, but unreasonable hope is destructive. And my hope that I would be what my parents wanted me to be had to be given up, and it was like a huge weight off my shoulders. It enabled me to really start the journey to become myself. You see, you can't live your life according to other people. You have to live according to your own conscience. And you can't live your life seeking the approval of others. It leads you into all sorts of bother. I mean, I had friends for a very long period of time who finally shown their true colours, and we're no longer friends. But I rather knew that that was going to happen. I'd known it for several years, but because of my thinking, I didn't end it. John wasn't very happy. About 6, 7, 8 years ago, he thought that this friendship should end. And you'll just have to ignore that telephone because I'm ignoring it. Let me see, I shall just do that. The most important thing that anyone needs to remember, that other people treat you the way they do because of who they are and not because of who you are. And we need to understand that from both points of view. It's really quite obvious when you think about it, because we all treat people differently. And if it was you that was the problem, they wouldn't treat you differently, would they? Everybody would treat you in exactly the same way, because it's intrinsic to you. But because we all think differently, that doesn't happen. Because people treat you the way that they are, and you treat people the way that you are. Anyway, that's enough for now. But I will add that those people who feel hatred for other people, let's say you read in the newspaper about some person that's committed some horrible crime, and it makes you really angry, and you think, well, I hope they rot in hell and they really should bring back the death penalty. That's you. That's not them. They haven't engendered this feeling in you. That feeling's already in you. And that is what you have to deal with. You can't blame that person for it. It's in you. Oh dear. Such a difficult lesson for that to learn that. But a wonderful one. As I've said, it was my epiphany. It was my born again moment. And I truly did become born again. I'll never ever forget that day when it finally all came tumbling out. Oh, for fuck's sake. When it finally all came tumbling out. I wish that person would stop bloody ringing. Do you think they'd get the message? Anyway, I'm going to go because this damn phone's annoying me.